I was faced with a choice which I never should have had.
She was crying like I had never heard a woman cry before in my life.
And I just cried for weeks and weeks. Everything reminded me of a baby.
And I kept trying to get up from the table and look to see what was in that jar.
I was dealing with the loss of my unborn child and I didn't even know it.
I believe that my life was spared that night just so that I could be here right now and say abortion hurts women.
Whisper, be silent no more.
Welcome to Faces of Abortion. I'm your host, Cindy Collins, and again, we're with our special co-host, Molly White. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm so glad to be back on this show.
It's so great to have you here as my co-host and us being able to just share, even as women, on Faces of Abortion, on the effect of abortion. And I know that we have some special guests today, Judah Myers, who you're going to be interviewing, and also Sarah Stone. They'll both be talking about the value of life and how we as people and as a nation can help women in need.
Amen.
So what we want to do is now go ahead and listen to Molly's special interview with Judah Myers, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to be speaking with Sarah Stone on the importance of reaching out to women and how women who are feeling forced or coerced to have an abortion can receive help.
Welcome back to Faces of Abortion, and I have the privilege of interviewing a very special guest, and her story is a little different. She has not had an abortion, but her very conception is what pro-abortion activists try to use to keep abortion legal. Let's welcome my guest, Judah. Judah, thank you for being on the show.
I am so excited to be with you, Molly. We go back a little ways.
We do. We first met in Austin, Texas during an ultrasound rally where we were both there in support of an ultrasound bill before a woman has an abortion, that she has the right to see her unborn child. And your sign captured me. And tell the audience what your sign read.
My sign said, conceived in an 8-man rape. My mother chose life. She's my hero.
Amen.
It did get a few looks.
It did, and it definitely drew my attention, and we met and we became friends. But I want you to, first of all, before we talk about our activism, tell the audience about your situation, about your mother's conception from violent act of rape, and your story.
Well, I actually met her in 2005, and that's when I learned the whole truth about what had happened to her. I was adopted. The agency to spare everybody from, I guess, adopting less than perfect child, as you know, society thinks. I was told that my mother had died. And so when I started looking for my mother, I found non-identifying information that she was 22. So when I met her, I wanted to know if it was true. So she said she was walking home from a movie late one night when on the street corner there were 8 guys, no shirts, up to no good, and they beat her, they raped her, and they left her for dead. Wow. So she just laid there just thinking, I just hope they don't come back and kill me. Wow. So when she got up enough nerve to go back, she was a nanny, and so she went back to the home. She packed her things and she moved back with her family. 3 months later, she finds out she's pregnant. And while she's in the doctor's office, the doctor, this is 1956 when she was raped. I was born on Valentine's Day of 1957. But in 1956, we think no one was thinking of abortion. Yet, my mother was told by the doctor, oh, I can take care of it.
Wow.
And I love the fact that she stood up to them and she said, you will not take care of it because it is my baby.
Wow.
And she had to stand up against her family too because they wanted me aborted. They didn't even believe she was raped. And I have to say, this is the norm.
Yes.
Even today, I've worked with
Sad.
hundreds of women. They constantly tell me, people don't believe I was raped. And it's just, it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
And especially when they want their baby. Nobody can understand how that woman could love this child. It's going to remind you of the rapist. There's so many things that society just doesn't understand. And what my mother told me was that it reminded her, my birth reminded her that there is a God in heaven who can make things better.
Wow. And so she gave birth against all the odds.
Yes.
And placed you for adoption.
She did.
And then when you were how old?
I met her at 48.
You were 48 when you found your birth mother.
And she had gotten a picture of me from the lady at the agency. She'd gotten a 3-month-old picture of me, and they told her, don't worry, she's safe and she's happy with a really good family. And I loved my family. So when I met her, and I just lost her in December.
Yes.
When I met her, she was holding that picture of me when I was 3 months old, and she had held that for 48 years.
Wow.
So when somebody tells me that rape-conceived children are unwanted and they're unloved, they haven't met my mother.
That's right.
And they haven't met the hundreds of women that I have met that have told me it's an insult when somebody suggests that they abort their baby.
Exactly. Exactly. Judah, how did you feel when your mother told you about your conception?
It bothered me a lot because of me, she went through a lot.
Yeah.
And I would have spared my mom anything. I started crying. I put my head in her lap because she was in a wheelchair. And I was kneeling beside her. So I just put my head in her lap and I was just crying. And in her little Southern accent, because she was from Alabama, she said, honey, stop your crying. I've forgiven those men.
Wow.
And look what God has done. He's brought you back to me. God is faithful.
Amen.
And I'm a songwriter. So this was in December. So on my birthday in 2006, in February, I went to her and I gave her a song called God is Faithful. And when she listened to it, I saw her eyes just filled with the love of Christ.
Wow. Amen. What a beautiful story. You're also an author. You've written a book.
I have Hostile Conception.
Hostile Conception.
Living with Purpose.
Amen. And it's your story. Your story, and it's also about how you came to reconcile your conception and able to forgive because your mother has forgiven.
And it's all about forgiveness.
Yes.
And the child should never have to pay for the crime of the father. And while people are targeting children conceived in rape for death, the rapist goes free.
That's right.
And it even protects pedophiles and family members who are incestuous. It continues.
That's right.
The crime.
Punishing the child never solves the violent act of rape, and it never punishes the rapist.
Right.
It's always the child that's being punished.
And the mother.
And you made a very profound statement that I would like for you to repeat when we were at the UN and you were speaking at a workshop. And you speak on behalf of women and men who are conceived in rape. You have just as much right to life as anyone conceived in any other matter. And so you're a very strong pro-life advocate against the platform of rape and incest being an excuse to keep abortion legal. But you made a statement about how people look. Would you repeat that statement?
You really can't tell that I was conceived in rape. You look at me and you cannot see, I don't have the 666 mark in my neck. Yeah. I'm just a normal person, and so is everyone else. But even if we weren't normal, they are killing the babies with Down syndrome. In 1966 in Mississippi was the very first abortion